Totally. I think it's just about being really kind of intuitive about it. So thinking, what is it that my body actually needs? What would be like a good thing to give my body at the moment? And if you really listen to that, then I think it becomes easier to eat in a kind of more balanced and healthy way.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Self-Discovery in Good Company. Hi Stace.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm very well, very well. Very excited that we've got a guest with us tonight, Stace.
I know, it's our first ever guest, so we are so excited. We have Ailsa with us, who is a registered dietitian. Hi Ailsa.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Oh, we're so excited to have you. Can't believe we've got a guest.
I know. I am so excited. We shared with on Instagram that we were going to have you on, and did anyone have questions? So we've got a load of questions. Stace and I didn't really need those questions. We have enough questions of our own.
I have enough questions of my own. Ailsa gets them quite a lot from me every time she puts up at. What's your Instagram handle? Just by the way, Ailsa, before we start, it's Nourish with Ailsa, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep, that's the one.
Yeah. So whenever Ailsa puts up like a ask me a question box, I like to ask the most random questions, like what age can I give raisins? That's got to be like the stupidest question you've ever had. Like, when can my children start eating raisins? Very specific, but I needed to know the answer to it, and you always give me the answer to it.
Yeah, and so whatever question you think is daft, I'll always have had dafter. So just keep that in your head.
Okay, then that's good. But no, Ailsa's her Instagram is ace. I love the content. You put up so much interesting stuff, and like you'll tell us a little bit about yourself, but this is me telling the world a little bit about you. You're so good with like it's interesting for me because I'm in the phase of life where I have babies that are weaning. They're obviously a little past weaning now, but I would get myself so stressed out about what kind of meals, trying to make everything from scratch, trying to do this. Ailsa does the most amazing, like, this is what I give my kids for tea posts. And honestly, I live for them because they're so like easy and normal. Like, I'm like, I can do that. I've got toast and peanut butter. I can do that. And honestly, it makes it so much easier. Like, so for me, it's like everyone needs to follow your page, and like especially those with young kids to be getting that. I think it's just invaluable for me. It's just
I actually had two people message being like, oh my God, Ailsa's amazing. And like one person was like, Ailsa really helped my little girl when she had like allergies to work out like what she should eat and stuff. So yeah, there is a lot of love and there's a lot of questions. We're not going to lead with the raisin one today. We're going to hold off.
I've got the answer to it when they've got more side teeth than front teeth. I don't need the answer because she already gave it to me. So, yeah. But so, Ailsa, just to kind of let us know, you're a dietitian, a registered dietitian. We're going to get into that in a minute. You can explain, I guess, like you obviously work with adults and children, or what is it? I'm going to let you go. Tell us like your background, what it is, what you do. Give us all the goss.
Yeah, so I'll tell you first about what a dietitian is, because I think nutrition is one of those fields where there's so many different people. There's so much noise in that space about like who's an expert, who's qualified, who do you trust? It's so hard. So a dietitian is like a legally protected title, and it's the only legally protected title in the field of nutrition. So a registered dietitian has to have an undergraduate degree. So that'll either be like a BSc, or for some it might be an undergraduate master's or a postgraduate master's. And they're then accountable to a regulatory body called the Healthcare Professions Council. So we're the only nutrition professionals that kind of that fit into that and are accountable in that way. You do also get registered nutritionists who are like really well qualified, but the word nutritionist isn't a protected title. So anybody in theory could say they were a nutritionist, and it's really hard for people then to know, do I trust that person? Do I know what their credentials are, what their qualification is and their experiences? But there are like open registers where you can check. So you can check people's registration, and definitely for dietitians, you can do that. So I qualified in Aberdeen, and I've then worked in the NHS for 14 years. Since then, it's 14 years since I qualified, and I've worked with lots of different patient groups. So to start with, I worked with unwell adults in the hospital. And then I've gained lots of different experience, and then for the most recent years, I've kind of specialised in paediatrics. So that's my kind of main area of specialism. But I also see adult patients with IBS and with kind of gut-related issues as well. And then I've done some MSc modules in paediatrics and other ones in IBS and the management of that, and various other things, and then also worked in academia, so in university for the last 3 years, and started doing some freelance work 4 years ago to kind of overlap with my NHS work as well.
So, I mean, it's pretty safe to say that you're pretty qualified, pretty experienced dietitian.
Yeah, it's so funny though, because
you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think I do. I back myself to know a bit, but I think like anyone that does any kind of freelance work or any kind of social media stuff will know that you get like mega imposter syndrome, I think, with whatever you do. So it's hard, and you often have to like remind yourself, actually, it is okay for me to share some weaning content. Like that is something that I've worked in for a long time and something that is helpful. But I think it always feels like, can feel a bit uncomfortable.
No, I honestly trust everything you say, like so much. I mean, Ailsa says it. It must be true. It must be.
It must be hard though. I totally know what you mean, because like it is regulated, but it's then not. People aren't aware that it's regulated. Perhaps there's so much stuff out there and people saying things and like this is the best diet and this is the best diet. So it's great to actually understand that there is a difference there. Like, so coaching, for example, there's no regulation around coaching, which is, perhaps different to nutrition, because actually people are going to take people's like advice around that and make kind of like life choices on it, which could be like impacting their health in a positive or negative way. So it is really important to know that, I suppose.
I know. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, the main kind of tip I would give people, if you're wondering, like, is the content that I'm consuming or is the nutrition information that I'm reading legitimate? Is it good? Is it useful? Are they trying to get you to buy something? Because, it can be used so much in marketing that anything that you feel worried about, insecure about, either on behalf of yourself or your children, will always be like a marketing hook. So if it's trying to get you to buy something, I would be wary of it. And if it tries to tell you that like one really specific diet or one really specific food is the best one or the worst one, I would be really careful of that as well, just as a kind of general sort of things to look out for. Very good to know.
Very good to know. Because another question that I ask Ailsa quite a lot is, should I stop drinking Oatly barista milk? Because
oh God, this is me.
I saw somebody on the internet saying it spikes your sugar really badly. Should I be avoiding it? And Ailsa then comes back to me and says, Stacey, there is no such thing as a bad food. Everything kind of in moderation. Isn't that right, Ailsa?
Yeah, and I think literally as we were like messaging and having that conversation, I was like putting my trainers on to go out and buy an oat flat white. So I was like,
exactly,
that's fine for me.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, but I think that's a really good example of where like one specific food is like portrayed as being like the devil, and it's like we don't eat foods, we don't eat nutrients, we eat diet. So it's about overall, things that we eat and what that looks like in context.
Amazing.
So Stacey,
are we going into a bit more detail about this one? I know, and everyone's like,
you don't need to bin the Oatly. You don't need to.
It's funny because I've been scaling back. I've been pulling back on it a bit because people are like to me, I've got friends, I'll go to their house and be like, oh, I bought oat milk in for you, and I'm like, oh, thanks. And then I feel like people are like, think it's like some sort of allergy. It's not. I just like the taste of it. It tastes like sweeter. It's like nice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's good to know. Because
So you
there
don't
is
need
a
to
lot
worry
of stuff
about it.
around there about that just now.
I see it all the time. But
Yeah, so
no,
it comes from where it comes from is that oat milk has got a higher glycemic index than other things would. So glycemic index is something that refers to how quickly a food will increase your blood sugar by. But I think because of like a specific really high profile study that people are paying to be involved with at the moment, there's an awful lot of hype around blood glucose levels, blood glucose spikes. And for the vast majority of people, it's not something that any of us need to be worrying about or changing our diets necessarily because of. It's a really normal physiology that your blood sugar increases after you eat things. That's just a normal process. So don't worry. Enjoy your coffee.
Well, I need to. So I'm gonna kind of just start with some of the questions that we've got. Feel free to jump in with anything that kind of, there's no set structure. Let's just kind of go with it, see how we go. But I mean, the question that that Stacey and I have is, obviously we're very much into the mental well-being, our spiritual well-being, all of that good stuff, all of that woo-woo stuff. And you wouldn't necessarily think, I suppose, that how your food and your diet kind of ties into that. So how does food link to your mental well-being?
Yeah, so it's so important, and it's a really the answers really varied. So there's lots of different ways in which the food that we eat will impact our mental health. So I guess the first one is a really kind of scientific, physiological reason, and this is about something that you might have read about or heard about called the gut-brain axis. So we know that our guts and our brains talk to each other. They send signals to each other, and that's a very kind of bi-directional communication. So your brain talks to your gut and your gut talks to your brain. And the best example of that I use, every time I do a clinic, I would use this example, but is if you were a nervous flyer and you were about to get on an aeroplane, you would feel that in your tummy. So your tummy would be feeling butterflies. You might need to go to the toilet more. For some people, they'll get, they'll get bloating, or they'll get really significant discomfort in their tummy. So that's because your brain and your gut are talking to each other. So we know that that's a really established thing. And the old, we've referred to the gut feeling for a long, long time, but we know based on really good science that is a thing. So by that kind of mechanism, your gut health can impact your mental health, and your mental health can impact your gut health. So if you've got gut health that is good and you're eating a really good range of food, you've got lots of healthy gut bacteria and generally good gut health, then that would potentially improve mental health, and has been shown in studies that you can manipulate the diet to improve mental health. And likewise, poor mental health might lead to poor gut health. So I guess that's the kind of first strand in a sort of really scientific, physiological kind of way.
That's amazing. And
I know.
I feel like gut health has become something recently that it's being talked about more recently, or maybe I'm just more aware of it, but I feel like it's everywhere just now.
It is.
Yeah, is that something? Is it new, Ailsa, or?
Yeah, so I think one of the things about medicine and health science is that we know a lot of things, but we don't know everything. So research is kind of constantly evolving, and as kind of investigative methods, so things that you can do to test things, gets better, and different methods of scanning gets better. And I think also just our, as a society, kind of acceptance more of talking about mental health and mental well-being and that kind of thing. It's something that we speak about and consider more. But definitely there's lots and lots of research kind of ongoing in the field of gut health and how that impacts us more widely. Yeah.
So let's come back to let's definitely pick still up on the mental well-being bit, but for gut health, because there's a lot of advice out there, or and I am aware a lot of it's probably advertisements about supplements for gut health.
Drinking your greens and that.
Yeah.
That's the other. I keep getting served those. I keep getting
Same.
served. Have your mango greens and your gut is going to be dancing. And I'm like, really? What is it?
Gut's going to be dancing.
What is this? What is this greens that I'm meant to be taking, Ailsa?
Yeah. So our gut health really is about two different things. So probiotics are bacteria themselves, and our guts should have a really wide range of millions and billions of bacteria. So we should have them in our gut. There's lots of things that can impact that and that can knock some of them out. So things like gastroenteritis, food poisoning, certain antibiotics can cause some damage to the gut and can change someone's gut microbiome. So that's why people might see new gut symptoms, new IBS type symptoms after they've had food poisoning, after they've had antibiotics, after they've been really unwell. But what those bacteria in our gut need to continue to be really abundant and to be really diverse is they need prebiotics. So prebiotics are things in our food that we eat, and that's what the healthy bacteria feed on. So we need to have both of those things. So we need to have good gut bacteria, and we need to eat lots of prebiotic food for those gut bacteria to feed on and to maintain abundance, so that there's lots of them, and that helps to maintain our gut health. So there's definitely supplements that can help to improve that range of bacteria. What we don't yet know is exactly what bacteria, for example, might be helpful for you compared to what might be helpful for me or the next person. So our gut microbiomes are all really unique, and there's not at the moment a reliable way to determine exactly what might help us on an individual level. And there are only a few probiotic supplements that have been proven to work, but there are millions of different ones for sale. So again, this is something where it can be so confusing for people, because you think, that's in really nice packaging, or that celebrities advertising it, or it's coming up on Instagram or on TikTok in an advert all the time. It must be good. But most of them will never have undergone any kind of robust clinical trial to show that it actually works. And what you probably do a lot of the time is spend a lot of money and have a lot of nice shiny things in your house that don't actually do anything and have never been shown to do anything useful.
Oh, Ailsa, you're going to tell me that the supplements that arrive every month for me for detoxing and de-bloating is just shit, and I'm not meant to be taking 2 of these things a day. Honestly, they get me hook, line, and sinker when they say, we're going to stop you looking bloated. I'm like, okay, I'll take them. Right, so you're telling me that some of these things are just, even though they came, like, they come from somebody who's marketing themselves as like, a health supplement like provider, very kind of natural, vegan, cruelty-free, all of that stuff. You're going to tell me that doesn't actually mean anything?
So in itself, that doesn't actually mean anything. What you would need to do, and what I guess where the kind of dietitian's expertise and skill comes in would be at saying, so if someone said to me, I've got this supplement that I'm paying X amount of money for and I take it every day or whatever, I would say, let's have a look at the trial data. What studies have they done to show that works? And have they done any? And was it unbiased? And who were they paying to do the study? And that sort of thing. So I guess this kind of goes back to when dietitians train in their kind of academic training, is about looking at research and being really inquisitive and asking questions about who's done the study to show that works. And the problem is, so with things like this, they're generally really unregulated. So like your GP or your doctor wouldn't be able to prescribe you a drug without knowing that there was good evidence that it worked. They wouldn't be able to do that. Things wouldn't be there would be no license to do that. Whereas when it's just you buying things online, there's nothing to protect you as a consumer from that being that might be totally useless. It might be helpful. You don't know, and that's what's really difficult, because it's done in such a clever way. I think the marketing around it, that they'll have like amazing websites and massive social media followings and things. And I think with everything about nutrition, what we all want. And, you know, I totally get it, is that we would want something that was going to be quick. We would want a quick fix. We would want something that was going to be easy for me to I'll just take that, and then I won't have to think about anything else. I'll just take that, and that's going to help. I guess the question to ask with all of these things is it making you feel better? And, you know, for people listening that use supplements, the first question I would say is, you know, is there evidence that it works? And is it making you feel better?
Because it's expensive.
Oh,
it's really expensive. It puts me off, like supplements and things. I don't take many because I'm like, I'm just too tight. I'm like, I don't want to spend like easily £100 a month. Easily you could spend that on things. And as you say, like sometimes you can't really understand if it's working or not. But I never thought about the clinical trials, but I'll definitely look into that.
Oh God, I didn't look into any of that either. I just give it to me.
Yeah. So when we talk about like probiotic supplements to help with gut health, there might be supplements that contain a lot of these healthy bacteria. They might contain really high numbers of them. But one of the key functions of our stomach acid is to kill bacteria. So it's to protect us, you know, in terms of as we've evolved, our stomach acid is there to protect us from bacteria that we might eat in the food that we're eating. So our stomach acid is really good at killing bacteria. So if you then take those bacteria in a supplement form, what's probably going to happen with an awful lot of these products is that your stomach acid will kill all of those bacteria, and none of them will get to the part of your gut where they're going to be of any use. So it's great to say that's what's in them when you swallow them, but unless you've proven that it works in the part of your gut that it's needed, then it might have no benefit to your gut health or your mental health or anything.
Oh wow,
that's so interesting.
Cancel subscriptions straight away.
Because I had really bad food poisoning a few years ago, and it was definitely linked to stress as well. And then when I went to see somebody, and I can't remember if they were registered or not, but they had said to me actually to use like an oral vitamin spray rather than a capsule, because they said at this point your stomach would have just been like, in a way, it wouldn't have absorbed any of the vitamins or nutrients. And I just felt like I needed like goodness in my body. So I did want to take like whatever I could. And they advised an oral spray. Is that something that you would advise people?
There's definitely sprays like vitamin D spray and other nutrients, like specific nutrients that people need for a spray form, might be the best one. I think the really key thing, just like the bigger picture with supplements, is to think, why are you taking them? Not you personally, but just in general, for people to question, why am I taking this? Because most of us shouldn't need to be taking many supplements, depending on the type of diet that you follow. And I think sometimes it either detracts from focusing on just eating well, and in a way that's going to make you feel good, because you think, I can just take those and then I don't have to pay any attention to what I'm eating. And then obviously the cost of it and that kind of thing. So I think it's really important to question why. And if you think that there's if you think you've got a specific kind of problem with a certain nutrient, or that you feel unwell, it's important for people to get help with those symptoms and to make sure that there's not something underlying, rather than just like a supermarket sweep of all the little bottles and pills that there are, and taking them to try and make ourselves feel better, when actually there might be other things that we can do that would be more helpful.
So what would like kind of simple things that we could do to like improve like gut health be? Like what could we do?
Yeah, so it is in terms of like a dietary approach. So what we need is lots of those prebiotic foods. So those are the things that are going to feed our gut bacteria and keep them healthy and happy. So prebiotics generally will come from plant foods. So the really key thing is to be eating as many different plants as we can. So that can be things like fruit and vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, things like lentils and chickpeas and pulses, rice and wheat, and all of these things. So things that come from plants will generally have the types of fibre that these gut bacteria like to feed on. So that would be the kind of overarching thing that I would advise, is look at what you're eating at the moment and think, where could I add in more? Where could I add in more plants? And I think so much of kind of diet culture or eating to look a certain way, or to kind of copy what someone else is doing, it's so frequently been about cutting things out, been about restricting things and thinking, I can't have that, I shouldn't have that. But the thing really for gut health would be adding things in. So getting more of the things that are going to be really nourishing for your body, and good for your gut. And you will probably sometimes find that will displace some of the stuff that isn't necessarily so good for us to be eating so much of.
This is going to sound like such a daft question. But I know you said there's no
daft questions. There's no daft questions.
Not the raisin question again. You're plant-based, aren't you?
So I eat, I'd say I eat a predominantly plant-based diet. I eat some fish and some small bits of dairy. It's just kind of the way that I choose to eat now. I definitely didn't grow up eating a vegetarian diet. That's not what my diet was like when I was a child or anything like that. But it's just a choice that I guess I've made over the last few years, and that feels really good for me. Yeah.
And do you ever indulge then in what I would consider to be like my treats? Like, you know, would you go and have like a bar of dairy milk? Not like a little one, like a family size one. Would you indulge in that with like a glass of wine? Like, or are you really healthy all the time?
No. So I think the thing with like really healthy is really healthy has space for everything in it. So a really healthy diet should include all of the things that you want it to include. And I definitely eat all of those things. I would eat chocolate every day unless by some like terrible mistake I'd run out and hadn't bought any more to put in the cupboard. Like that would be a disaster. But I think probably everybody relates to this, that you go through when you're like a teenage girl, and then like honestly growing up not even with social media in my teenage years, I honestly struggle to know how kids these days even cope with it. But
God, I know.
You know, definitely have gone through those phases of eating or trying to restrict what I was eating to look a certain way, or not eating when I knew I felt hungry, when I knew I needed to eat more but thought I shouldn't, that's bad, I shouldn't eat those things. Or have been really focused on, you know, that I guess by the nature of studying nutrition, you're particularly kind of aware of what's in the things that you eat. And definitely have gone through phases of having like an unhealthy relationship with food. And I think now I'm just in a place where I'm really comfortable with eating what I know it is that I want. So yeah, absolutely. Chocolate, wine, cake, ice cream.
Yes.
Whatever.
There's a place for it all. You heard it here first.
Yeah. Totally. I think it's just about being really kind of intuitive about it. So thinking, what is it that my body actually needs? What would be like a good thing to give my body at the moment? And if you really listen to that, then I think it becomes easier to eat in a kind of more balanced and healthy way.
Very interesting.
Can I ask, because I don't eat loads of meat. I eat fish, occasionally steak, but and I don't eat chicken. I don't eat pork or anything. Oh, I can't refuse a barbecue sausage. It's my only vice, not vice, but because nothing's bad. But it's the one thing that would get me. But I read a lot. It worries me a bit when I'm seeing a lot about protein, and I don't eat loads of protein because I don't eat. I don't think I do because I don't eat loads of meat. So what's your thoughts on protein in terms of more of a plant-based diet or vegetarian diet or whatever?
Yeah, so it's one of the main questions that people ask, I think, when anyone is following more of a plant-based eating pattern. It's always kind of protein that's the first thing that people will say, where do you get that? Where do you get enough protein from if you don't eat meat? The reality is, what all the data that we have tells us is that everybody in the UK eats more protein than they need. So that includes vegans, vegetarians, and meat eaters. So on average, we're eating more protein than any of us need. So I think we sometimes have this assumption or understanding that we need to be eating lots of protein, and if there's not a piece of meat on your plate on your main meal, that can't have enough protein in it. But we get protein from loads of different sources. So things like cereals and breads and pastas are quite significant sources of protein. And then things like nuts and lentils and beans, which obviously also have the added benefit of being great for your gut health, and low in cost and high in fibre and high in lots of other micronutrients and things. So I definitely don't think that just a blanket understanding that if you don't eat meat you can't be getting enough protein is just generally not supported by any of the data that we have. But I do think it's good when looking at meals to think through, where's the protein, where's the carb, where's the fat, and is there some fruit and veg with it? And if you generally kind of tot up meals in that way, then they'll be generally fairly balanced, as long as they've got those things in them.
Honest, I find that so interesting. Like, I want to know, like, then, because you're just saying, like, if it's got carbs, if it's got protein, if it's got this. So what would, like, my ideal diet look like in my late 30s, 40s? Like, what should I be, like, trying to achieve daily?
Yeah, so I think what our own ideal diets look like is really different for us individually, because it will come down to things like our preferences, maybe people's like religion, people's choices around what types of foods they want to eat and not eat and things. But I often say to people, like, imagine your week's diet laid out on a table. Would it be colourful? So would it have lots of different colours of fruits and vegetables in it? That's really important. The colours that we get in fruits and veg are they're like the micronutrients and the phytonutrients that are in our food, and they're really important for our health. So you'd want lots of colour. You'd want lots of fibre. So again, fruit and vegetables are great for them, but also things like whole grains and nuts and seeds and lentils and pulses and beans and that kind of thing. You wouldn't want too much of it to be processed, so you wouldn't want too much of it to be from packets where there were huge lists of ingredients and with ingredient names that you didn't recognise. But that doesn't mean there's not a place for them. They're absolutely fine to include. It's just that you wouldn't want to look at your diet and think most of what I'm eating is from that category. And then the foods that you enjoy, like the things that you really enjoy to eat, enjoy to cook, and enjoy to kind of share with your family. Do you know, I think food is about so much more than just nutrition. It's also about kind of our memories and our like socializing and that kind of thing as well. So we'll all have like favorite meals that we remember because, it's what our mums always used to cook or what we always used to have, at a certain time. So yeah, you'd want lots of color, lots of fiber, and not too much in the way of kind of processed and ultra processed foods, but definitely they aren't things that you need to be totally cutting out or worrying about.
Honestly, I could ask you a million questions. Honestly, I know we've only got like a certain amount of time, so I can't go on and on. But I find that also interesting, don't you, Stace?
Totally. I totally do. I felt so proud of myself when I was eating my tea tonight because I had, just by chance, I was like, what did I fancy? I made aubergine and sweet potato in my air fryer and put some tahini in it with black beans. And I honestly, and some tomatoes, and I thought, I feel like a teacher's pet here.
Oh, well, exactly.
Better than what I ate yesterday.
Honestly, it's really so interesting. I mean, we could literally speak for days and days. I think it's like we could continue to speak about this, but I think we do need to like have you on again to maybe speak about like children's, like,
children's nutrition would be a great
children's nutrition. I think people are really like, I know that I'm quite aware of that. Maybe second time around, I'm more aware of it. That's why I find your page and like your foods that you share so helpful. like, I never would have thought like I could give like a picky tea. Do you know what? Like a picky tea, like a bit of everything. Like, because I would never have thought, well, that's not tea. Like, you know, I meant to give like, you know, a full meal with like, you know, pasta and meat and all that stuff. But, you know, I can
Meat
give
and two
little
veg.
bits.
It used to be told,
Meat like
and two veg.
I can give different like bits and pieces, and I just find it so helpful. I have 2 more questions. These are Stacey questions, right?
I've got one as well.
Do you? Okay. Mine is, first of all, do you know anything? I don't know what comes under like the dietitian umbrella. Collagen powders, do they work?
I have got no idea. I've never read about them, but again, I would be saying exactly the same thing. If you've got a packet, if you've got a particular brand that you're using or that you're interested in, I would look at their data. Do they have data? Has it just been studied on a group of 10 people and 7 of them said, I think it's helped, or has it been shown in a really big number of people in like a robust way? And I guess maybe a good way to think of it is, would you give it to your child if you didn't know?
Oh God.
And then think, or would I, if I was giving it to them, would I be more, would I want to be more sure that it was evidence-based, that it was going to help, that it was worth the money, that it was safe, and those sorts of things. So for an individual product, I've got no idea. I've never never used them, never advised anybody on them, so not something that I have got any experience with. But that's what I would say, just similar to any supplements. What's the evidence that they work, or is it just really clever marketing? Is it a celebrity that advertises them? Is it really nice packaging? Is that why?
Okay. And yeah, before we get back into it, I do just have one more question. Have you got a question as well, Stacey? And then we can
I have a question as well.
Okay, then.
I love the questions.
These are our personal questions.
These are our
no, do you know, I love the questions, because I think there's so often things like this that it's like, how would you know if you don't ask that? How do you know who to ask or where to find answers to these things? So I love the questions.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm thinking as well? Like it when you were saying about like a lot of how we eat is probably like cultural, and like the way that we've been raised, and like the way that we, you know, like you think picky teas, you're saying, Stacey, like you wouldn't have probably got that. Like a freezer tea was like, oh God, freezer tea, like. Or actually, I know people who would love to freezer tea, like sausage rolls and little things like that.
Yeah, freezer tea.
But the way that your parents and you ate and things must kind of be what you then take into your family often at times.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you think of like, you know, maybe if you've traveled in other countries or, you know, met people from different cultural backgrounds, like what we think is normal for a specific meal is just because of what our society has kind of told us. So we think it's normal here that you would have toast or cereal for breakfast, just as an example. But there's other places in the world where you might have like hummus at breakfast time, or where you might have noodles at breakfast time, or rice at breakfast time. And there's nothing wrong with that. Those foods don't change in nutritional value because of the time of day at which you eat them. It's just about kind of culture and what's kind of normal for us in a social way. And I guess that's why I even question myself sometimes and think, gosh, I've given my kids like a picky tea every day this week. I should probably make them a bolognese or something. But after a day at nursery, they'll invariably be like, we're tired, we're not interested in sitting and eating a meal like that. So I sometimes think, oh gosh, I should do that. And then I do it. And then I'm like, oh, this is why I don't do that. Because
that is so true, isn't it?
Well, honestly, I made the boys a lovely homemade, it was bolognese the other week because it's always in my repertoire. I make it once a week and I made it for them, baby friendly. I was like, great, this is lovely. Did they eat any of it? They ate naff all of it. And it all ended up on my floor and I was furious. I was so mad. And I thought, what on earth is the point? But the nights that I've given them little bits of, the boys love fruit. So like I've been giving them like more fruit, and I'm like, okay, well, what would Elsa do? Okay, she would have like, toast with peanut butter there. I know they'll eat that. And they have been eating more, like, because it's the stuff that they're maybe just not interested in eating a giant bowl of spaghetti bolognese.
I think they just like the kind of independence with it, probably, and maybe foods that they can feed themselves are better for that.
Yeah. And like Harper's nursery, it's until she was 3, she used to get like a proper tea at nursery, and now she gets like random things. But she still gets like a quite big snack, and I know she has like seconds, thirds. So then when she comes home, like I'll do like pasta or something for her. And my mum said to me the other day, my mum was like, Sissy, you don't need to do her like a big tea like that. You could just do a sandwich. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, I know, because then I spend 20 minutes cooking for her. And that could be 20 minutes I was playing. Well, it would take me 5 minutes to knock up a sandwich and like some veg and stuff and just put that out for her.
Yeah, whereas if you said that she'd had for lunch a sandwich and some veg, you'd think, yeah, that's totally normal. But because it's the other way around and she's had like a bigger hot meal at nursery, I always can tell if it's been like a soup day at nursery, I'm like, I know they'll be hungrier this evening. But if it's been anything other than soup, I'm like, great, they can have. And yeah, my youngest, I think they eat so much peanut butter that she just thinks butter is peanut butter. I don't think she doesn't realise that they're like two different things. So she'll,
amazing.
Just calls it peanut butter. And I'm like, well, that's not what that is, but yeah.
Stace, I'm surprised we didn't get like a random question in from Gav. The mince.
Honestly.
I was reading because Gav was like, oh yeah, it's mince. Remember pronouncing?
Oh no, the chicken korma.
Oh, the chicken korma.
That's what it was. Oh my god, I totally lost it. Yeah,
I think John actually, Sarah, your sister's husband,
in a roast chicken as well. Yeah, honestly, in the roast chicken, he's like, I can't have a roast chicken ever again. Honestly, you fed it to me too much. This is my husband complaining that I was making korma once a week for him, a lovely homemade curry from scratch, might I add, and he was complaining about it. Honestly, anyway, so,
give him a picky tea. He can have some peanut butter on toast and a few strawberries, and that is fine. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'll do for him next time. Say, you've got all your nutrients here. Sorry, I lost that there.
Sorry. I was like, I couldn't be doing this after drinking. Like, I have no. Oh my god! Don't put this in. I have no I am so slow once I've had a drink.
Honestly, I'm like mince. What are you talking about? Mince. Yeah, got it. Got it in the end.
Well, it wasn't mint, so no wonder.
So that was me. I just had one last question then from me, Ailsa. I've heard that frozen vegetables are just as packed with nutrients as fresh ones. I've always been led to believe that buy fresh. But people are telling me now that no, I don't. I can just have frozen veg. Is this true?
Yeah, I'd love to know where you heard it from. But
I know, I'm like, who are these people, Steve?
Who do you follow on social media? But yeah, that's
a lot of random people. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it's time for a wee cull.
Totally.
But yeah, that is
true.
Yeah, that's totally true. So when fruit and veg get harvested, their kind of nutrient profile will generally start to denature. So a lot of the active vitamins that are in them will start to denature and therefore not be so effective, not so beneficial for our health. And I totally get what you mean. You just kind of think when you go into the supermarket and there's all these aisles of like colourful fresh fruit and veg that must be the best. But if that's something that's been harvested like in North Africa or in the Middle East or something, has then been put on an aeroplane or some sort of freight ship or something and has then come to the UK and then come to Scotland and then sat in a depot and then all of that. So that's a long time since it was harvested. Whereas things that are frozen will generally be frozen within hours of being picked or harvested, and therefore a lot of the nutrition gets preserved. And I think the other thing, like especially if it kind of ties in nicely with when we're speaking about gut health and like just generally increasing diversity of plant foods, so fruit and vegetables, is that using frozen ones means you can use more different ones. So if you've got lots of different bags of veg, it's much easier to put in more different types into a curry or a bolognese or something. Where if you were preparing like a fresh, I don't know, broccoli to put in a curry, you probably wouldn't then also prepare loads of other fresh veg. But if you put in frozen, then you can mix it with lots of other things. So yeah, and it's much cheaper generally as well, and stops us wasting
I was going to say, it is much cheaper. It is so much cheaper, and you're not throwing out nearly as much because you don't have to, because you can. Honestly, that was a game changer for me.
And like cutting up broccoli and cauliflower and butternut squash is such a butternut squash is such a
butternut squash. Jeez, you need like a axe to do that.
It totally is. It's such a faff. It's so fine, but it's such a faff. But like even like cauliflower and broccoli, little bits go everywhere. So even like the mess, it's more mess and more time.
Yeah. Honestly, frozen ones are great. To just frozen.
Question from me, however. If you overcook the frozen veg, does that impact the nutrients? I always think that sometimes. Like if I overcook things, have I like made it less nutritious?
Yeah, so like steaming and microwaving things would be the best way generally with like vegetables to preserve the vitamins and minerals in them. If you like cook veg in like a big pan of water and boil the life out of it so it's soggy, then a lot of the goodness that was in there will have like leached out into the water that you're then probably not gonna consume. It's different if it was like a soup or something like that, but generally the less time it's been cooked for, and if it hasn't been like soaked in water whilst it's been cooking, then that'll generally be the best sort of way to do it. So I use the microwave all the time for veg and just for ease. Like,
amazing.
Oh my God. I love that. I want to be like you when I grow up. Even though I'm like a good 10 years older than you. But
I don't think
sound like you've got your life together. I love that.
Oh, is that all I have to do? It's just like microwave a bit of broccoli and you've got your life together. Yeah.
You've got your life together, man. You know so much. Honestly. I love it. That was super
Can
insightful.
I ask my one question? I know we're out of time.
I thought that was your
that
one
was
question.
just my one that came up. That was just my one that came up. Fasting. I know we could speak about this for ages, so we don't have probably as much time.
Subject, Stace.
But like, is fasting beneficial? So like eating 8 hours, eating in an 8-hour window a day. As a registered dietitian, what is your view on that?
Yeah, so again, it's not an area that I've really worked in. It's not something definitely that I'd ever be recommending for children, which is the majority of what I work with. And it's not something that I've ever really looked at the evidence for because it hasn't been relevant to the groups of patients that I work with. But there is some, I understand that there's some data that it can be effective for certain parameters, so it can have a benefit on certain things. But the question really is, why are you doing it? So if someone's thinking about fasting, what are you trying to achieve by doing it? And I would guess that for a lot of people, it would be weight loss. So I guess then the question is then, how long are you going to do it for? What's going to happen when you stop doing it? And a big problem, one of the really key...
It's not doing anything.
One of the really key problems with different kind of commercial diets or things that are advertised or become really trendy is that they're not kind of sustainable. They don't teach us how to kind of respect our own bodies, feed them what feels good, fuel ourselves well, and learn and develop healthier habits. They teach us to restrict, and they teach us that what we were doing before was bad and that we should cut out the things that we want and that sort of thing. So I think for really specific people, it might be beneficial, but it really depends on what it is that you're doing it for.
Oh, thank you.
But it's not my expert area. Fasting is not my expert area.
It's not mine either, evidently.
Yeah, whenever I know people that, or I've heard of people that have done it before, and I just always think like, I can't go from kind of eating breakfast at 8 until lunchtime. Like I'm totally ready for my lunch at 12, and usually we'll have had a snack in between, and I just can't imagine going for like 16 hours or however long it is that people do it for. I don't think I couldn't do it.
And I think as well, it's back to one of the things that you said earlier. I think a lot of the times people are looking for a quick fix, and that has been positioned as a quick fix. And I think I've looked at some stuff on it, and I'm not sure like the background of it, but they've said maybe it's good for like managing health conditions or stuff like that. So there maybe is, as you say, instances, but quite a lot of the times it's probably a lot of people like, myself included, who are just like, oh, maybe that's just an easy way to manage my weight or whatever it is. But actually, the thing is, and this is like back to kind of like a coaching thing, quite a lot of the time, we all know what it is that you're supposed to do. And it's just actually about putting it into practice if you want to make changes in this space.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with nutrition, and the reason that it's such an area where kind of marketing of things that aren't evidence-based can really catch us, is that the reality is that like a sensible kind of moderate approach is the best one, but that's not a good kind of sales pitch. That's not going to make people, it's not a sexy thing. People don't want to think about like, oh, if I do this, then in this many months' time I might see this kind of improvement in my health. So it really has to be about like, I guess, mindset, and us getting to a point where we think, I'm actually done with all of the nonsense, all of the sales stuff that's telling me that I'm not good enough, that what I'm doing is wrong, that if I buy this, I'll feel better, that if I buy this, I'll look different, or I'll, all of those things. And it's just kind of letting go of that, I think, and thinking, our bodies are amazing. All of our bodies are amazing, and they allow us to do so many amazing things. And it's kind of thinking about how can I be kind to myself, and how can I like feed myself in a nourishing way, rather than in a way that that makes me feel like I'm being restrictive, or I'm not allowing myself things that I want. But it's not a sexy thing. Everything in moderation is not a good tagline, really.
Oh, but I love that. I actually love that in terms of like nourishing your body and like being grateful. Like if it takes it back to kind of like what this podcast and like what we super believe in is like the gratitude piece, and like being grateful for your body. And if you're being so restrictive and really cutting back and things, and I've done that over the years. I've gone through phases where I had to weigh absolutely everything I was going to put in my mouth and look at the macronutrients and stuff. And I'm honestly now just like, do you know what? Like I know what's good for me generally. I know what's bad for me. I have both. I have more stuff that's good for me than bad for me. I try to still have wine, soft chocolate, etc., etc. But like, I think as well, you it's hard to be in a place of like gratitude and loving yourself if you're so restrictive with yourself. And this is one of my favorite quotes. I don't know if it's dietitian approved. You can let me know, Ailsa. Don't waste 95% of your life to be 5% thinner.
Oh, did you make that up, or is that an actual quote?
I saw it on Instagram years ago or something. It's one of my ones. Because that's often what it is. You know what I mean? Like people are so restrictive, and like, they're a size 10 and they want to be like, you know what I mean? Or like they're healthy and like that's the way their body just is. And you know what I mean? There's stuff like that. And I think that we're pumped. And as you say, also like the social media piece, like that, oh my gosh, I had all that and didn't even grow up with that being in my fingertips all the time. If you think about like our children, must be so difficult for them growing up with that narrative.
Yeah, I think it's like you could look back and think about loads of things, not nutrition specifically, but just about lots of things. You'd look back and think, God, why did I waste that time like stressing over that situation? And I spent so much emotional energy on that, and actually now it's like totally insignificant. So I think it is, if it feels like it's something that you're spending more time thinking about than you think is healthy, or that you're being more restrictive or whatever than you think is healthy, that getting some support with it is a really good thing to do, because it's probably like quite freeing, and frees up all that emotional energy that's being used on thinking about exactly what the right way to eat is, or the right way to look, or the right size to be, or the right amount to weigh, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Ailsa, that was amazing. That's a lovely little round off for that. Thank you so much for being our first ever guest.
I know. I feel like I'm going to listen back with like my notepad and make notes.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome to be your first guest. It's exciting. I just wish my name was also Stacey.
Oh, that's only reserved for the really special people. But
you're not Stacey.
Thank you so much, honestly, and you will continue to be my go-to person for anything like sensible and that I should be doing in life.
We'll be fighting more of these questions, and we'll definitely get you on to do a kids one.
Honestly,
for sure.
But I'll
Kids
just be asking you all my random nonsense again. So
we'll start with
what's an alternative to ice cream every day?
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming and for speaking with us, and we will speak to you soon. I will see you. We'll be at the Pregnant and Baby show in September together. So if we don't see you before, we'll get to see you there.
Yes, that's cool.
Ace. Thank you so much. Have a lovely. I'll see you soon. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.